another K-Town beat.
I stay in my lane, you swerving. I need a bag. They hate on the hustle, you know I've been working. Sound low country, but keeping it urban. Don't fuck with no bourbon, ayy, ayy. Off curb, we serving, yeah. If I get a mask, we purging. Run up that brother, that is for certain. I stay in my lane, you swerving. I need a bag. They hate on the hustle, you know I've been working. Sound low country, but keeping it urban. Don't fuck with no bourbon, ayy, ayy. Off curb, we serving, yeah. If I get a mask, we purging. Run up that brother, that is for certain. It's F-O-E-V. Little bit, you know who it be. A foe and I'm letting off 3 RP. He deceased, Luca took a seat. Sheesh. Hey, I'm going crazy. These niggas lazy and do not face me. Get hit with a biscuit and I got his gravy. Like, why do they hate me? Cause I'm chasing greatness. This shit off the muscle, no luck, it took patience. I'm number one, not up for debating. Leave dog faces for barking and fake. Can't fuck with no basic like liquor, no chasing. My problems in life like a wood, I'm a face. These niggas in trouble, no time to rebuttal. Cause I'm on a shuttle, yeah, I'm taking off. She wanna pimp, not a sip, I'm a boss, yeah. I stay in my lane, you swerving. I need a bag. They hate on the hustle, you know I've been working. Sound low country, but keeping it urban. Don't fuck with no bourbon, ayy, ayy. Off curb, we serving, yeah. If I get a mask, we purging. Run up that brother, that is for certain. I stay in my lane, you swerving. I need a bag. They hate on the hustle, you know I've been working. Sound low country, but keeping it urban.
What's up, everybody? It's URBNKC, episode 35. Shout out to everybody tapping in today. We really appreciate y'all. Today we have a special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead and let everybody know who it is that you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Herrera. I am a disabled veteran. I served in our Air Force for just under 16 years as a biomedical engineer. I served honorably in Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey, Germany, and I've been to over 80 military installations. At my last duty position here at Whiteman Air Force Base, home of the B-2 Spirit bomber, I was responsible for 8 healthcare facilities, guiding us through COVID pandemic relief. I was the sole clinical engineer running facility management at Whiteman during 2020's COVID pandemic response. And I was also guiding Johnson and Pettis County here through that experience as well.
Phenomenal.
Military service, though, ended abruptly for me because I'm a 3-time survivor of self-harm brought on by combat trauma. So I talk very openly about my PTSD experience. And that propelled me into a career in law. I had to get out of healthcare, so I became a lawyer, practicing constitutional law, and worked as an assistant attorney general here in the state of Missouri.
Phenomenal. And now you are running for Congress.
That's right. I'm running for United States Congress. Like, how did I forget that?
Right.
Running for United States Congress in Missouri's 4th Congressional. I am working to unseat and replace Congressman Mark Alford, and we have a store going live this coming week so people can get yard signs and really support the campaign.
Phenomenal. Make sure y'all check out the description because his website is in the description. So make sure you go check out the website. You can see his view, his vision, what he's going for. Really excited to dive in today to kind of ask some hard questions. And we're going to talk about what it is that you got into this for, and also let the community engage as well. So if anybody who's viewing has any questions, you want to ask them a question, or you have some kind of view you want to share, let it be known. This is all about community here at URBNKC, so let's talk about it. Before we get too far into it, before politics, who was Jordan Herrera? Tell us about your upbringing and what shaped your values today.
Absolutely, and I actually tell this story on the road. It's my Wake Up the Neighbors story.
Right.
And it comes from a real place, real pain and tragedy. I was not fortunate growing up, which is fine. I had a real American way of life. My mother and father were both under the age of 25 years old when they had my brothers and I. 3 boys under the age of 25. They didn't really get any kind of financial planning assistance or anything like that. That wasn't a thing that was taught back in the 80s when we were born.
Right.
And so, my parents struggled. And the way that was dealt with at that time was they drank over it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, over a number of years, that alcohol use turned into violence.
For sure.
And so from the ages of 5 to 12, my parents were extremely violent toward one another, both of them. There was never a day in my formative experience where it was just calm or peaceful. So I remember, and this is fairly normal, children of alcoholic families, when you're in this position, you sort of adopt a role. And so I did too. I was the savior, what I thought was supposed to be that. I would jump in the middle of mom and dad fighting and try and break them up. A lot of kids do this, right? And it's kind of unique. A lot of children who grew up in alcoholic families, they keep that same role growing up. My brother did. My younger brother did, and I did too. So anyway, as a young kid, I was also the fastest one.
Okay.
So it was my job to find a way to get out of the house, run across the street, go and wake up a neighbor and use their phone. We were too poor to afford one. And this is in the 90s. We were too poor to afford one.
Right.
So I would have to run out across the street and knock on Martha Walker's door. That was who I would normally wake up, and beg to use her phone. And she was in her 80s, and she was God's angel on earth, honestly. She was always there every weekend to make sure that us kids had a place to find safety.
Yeah.
So my dad wasn't just limiting the violence toward my mother. So for 7 years that went on. And you know, the reason I tell that story is because it's still happening today.
Yeah.
Young people are experiencing financial stress and burdens on an unparalleled, unprecedented level.
Absolutely.
Young families are experiencing bankruptcy, homelessness, home insecurity, food insecurity, healthcare insecurity on a grander level than we've experienced since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
60% of Americans are living below the poverty line. And the two biggest reasons why people are going into homelessness today is actually housing costs, number one,
Yes.
and healthcare costs, number two.
Yes.
So it's not a moral failure or addiction or mental health. It's everyday life in America, and that's what happened to my parents.
Yeah.
You know, everyday life happened to them, and the social safety net that was supposed to be there to protect us kids was not there. So a big part of the reason why I'm running today is to be that protector I never had growing up. Because I recognize there are children all across our country that don't have health care, that don't have a savior, that don't have an advocate, that don't have teachers, that are at risk of losing their public school,
Absolutely.
at risk of losing access to getting around town through public transportation.
Yeah.
And it's all because we want to determine by zip code and by color who deserves dignity, who deserves value and worth. And for me, because I practice my faith every single day, your zip code, your color, your birth of origin does not matter to me. What matters to me is what you do with your life and what you're capable of doing with the things you learn.
Right. Absolutely. With the tools you're given.
Exactly.
That's an amazing story. And I mean, it just goes to show, Isaiah Maxey in the comments said, you got my vote.
Oh, thank you, Isaiah. Feel free to ask me any kind of hard questions you want.
Feel free, y'all, to tap in, ask some questions.
I'm a constitutional lawyer. I can get down into the weeds.
He's ready for the hard questions, y'all, and I'm excited about it. But
or if you want to hear war stories also, I can give you some of those.
No, I literally love to hear that, you know, you understand what it means to get it through the mud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you've been there. You know, you've been in that particular... Yes, Lasagna said, got my vote. Okay. getting the voters out here immediately. I have something that kind of had a little bit to do with that. And it says, Kansas City has a lot of working class families trying to get ahead. What parts of your life help you understand their struggles? You answered that just a bit. Go into maybe just a little bit on the politics side, where your views, do you think, match these struggles? And what do you think, as you're going for Congress, you'll do with that? And how do you merge that and kind of, That's a really great question. So we're in seasonal work period right now. So a lot of folks who are not union are in and out of job opportunities, right? My father was a roofer. He still is, I think. We don't really have a relationship anymore. But while I was growing up, he was a roofer. And so he was always in and out of work during the winter seasons. How I grew up, in this one example, is if we had unions available for my father where I grew up at the time I grew up, my family would have had better protections. My father would have had better compensation. We would have had better benefits. None of that existed for our family. The first time I ever saw a dentist, I was 19 years old and I had joined the Air Force. We couldn't afford it beforehand. Absolutely.
And I felt shame growing up over that, you know, with that lack of opportunity, that lack of healthcare. Today, I recognize there's no shame in that. I was given these struggles to advocate from, and I speak from it because I lived through it. You know, it's one thing for Mark Alford or Donald Trump to talk about groceries being a new word,
you know, absolutely,
or a theory of affordability, because Mark Alford, who's our current congressman and who I'm running against, he owns multiple homes in our district. He has multiple Airbnbs in our district. He's talking about the housing crisis in a theory. I just moved from a 2-bedroom apartment down to a 1-bedroom apartment because it's too expensive. And I'm already shopping at Aldi.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what else I can cut. But when these jokers up in DC tell us that, affordability is a hoax, no, I open the refrigerator and I feel it every day. And oh, by the way, I call hundreds of people every week who say the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
So it tells me they just aren't picking up the phone and they're not listening.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would do, or how I grew up that relates to what we're going through also,
500%.
is that our labor and workforce is really under attack. And, we can even look at the income tax here in the state of Missouri, how they're asking or the Republican supermajority in our state today is trying to repeal the state income tax. And while that may sound good to working folks, right, we get more money in our pocket. Keep in mind, you're taxed at around, 30% income, we'll say. 30% of your income is taxed that way.
Right.
You should expect to pay anywhere from 21 to 25% more for every product you buy, whether it's milk, eggs, whether it's pencil, whether it's paper. Right. All of that sales tax is going to add up. Right. And you will spend more in sales tax than you did in your earned income tax at the state level. Yeah. Because what they're not saying at the state level, what Keo is not reminding folks is at the federal level, your income taxes are still coming out. Yeah. So you will still be paying taxes.
You will still be paying those taxes.
And you'll be paying more. And now here's why it's important for working folks, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the option to go across state lines to go and buy products when we need it. We have to go to the store down the street and buy.
Right.
Some folks can order things online, but I know plenty of older folks who can't.
Right.
So this is a tax that hurts working class people, the people who work from paycheck to paycheck, elderly folks, and those who don't have the access or means, like automobiles, to leave the state and go and make their purchases.
Right, right. No, 500%. Totally agree with that.
And if you don't think that a billionaire has all those options, you're crazy.
No, they do. Y'all got all the same options we've got. You know what I'm saying? Same type of people, just a different bracket. Looks like we've got some conversation in the comments. Let's see what we got going on. Isaiah Maxey says, what is your thought process on the juvenile system? Fantastic question.
That is a really great question. Actually, so I was an assistant attorney general for the state of Missouri, right? And so as a civil litigator, I was in every Missouri prison. I've talked to hundreds of wardens, well, not hundreds of wardens. We only have a couple of those. A few wardens, hundreds of correctional officers, police officers, state highway patrolmen, and all of the other. And so what I've learned in these situations is oftentimes people do care and they want to do good, but they're drastically underfunded. They do not have enough people, and there was likely little to no training provided. And that's coming from the correctional officers. That's coming from people who operate, our juvenile detention centers. Yeah. They're not called officers in those capacities. I think they're called guardians or custodians. Right. But they have their own specific name for that. So for me, it comes in the investment. Are we spending money on talent, or are we just finding who needs a job?
Who needs a
job?
Yeah.
Are we finding people who care about these kids and are willing to work with people who are going to be less than perfect? And I don't say that in a bad way. I'm a Catholic, and in Isaiah there's a passage that reads, "A bruised reed he will not break." And I've used that my entire life. A bruised reed he will not break, meaning you don't have to be perfect. You can be full of scars and bruises, and the Lord, or whatever your higher power is, I'm not here to evangelize. You have purpose. You have value still. You don't have to be perfect. So we need educators and social workers and therapists in these spaces who really want to rehabilitate children, but it comes with the investment. We don't have the investment from the state level. One of the things that folks don't realize is in the state of Missouri, when we say our public education system is fully funded, what we mean by that, by the law, is 28%. And we have not been fully funded in over a decade, meaning we have not been up to 28% of the funding required for public education in our state in over a decade.
Wild when you think about that, y'all. That's wild.
Right? 40% of our public education funding comes from the federal government.
Right.
Not even from the state of Missouri.
Not even from the state. And that's their job. Like, that's their responsibility.
Exactly. So what are they investing into? The state is not investing into your kids. They're investing into their own pet projects. I mean, there's numerous instances of self-dealing over in the Missouri legislature. Look, I would say this about any supermajority. It doesn't matter if you're red or blue. A supermajority is bad. People get away with bad things when there is a supermajority. I run a program separate from my congressional campaign called Purple Power 2030, where we are working to get as many Democrats elected into the Missouri House and Senate as possible in an effort to balance that
balance
out
the scales,
and get us to purple.
Sure.
Get
I
us
like
to
that.
purple.
I like that. And that has a little bit to do with one of my questions that I have here.
Oh,
so
good.
we're going to jump into it. It says, what is your view of the presidential power?
Sure. So, oh man, I forgot my Constitution. I normally have it with me. This is also not the jacket I normally wear, but it looked the best with my pins. So, thank you. So I love to tell this point to folks. All right. So in our United States Constitution, I need everyone to remember this. Article 1 is Congress. Article 1 is the power of the people. It is the voice of the people by your representatives who you elect in the ballot box. When you show up to the midterms this year, and you will show up on August 4 vote for Jordan Herrera in the 4th Congressional. So when you show up on August 4th and when you cast your ballot, that's how we go after this thing. So Article 1 is the people, but you have to show up and participate.
Gotta vote.
Democracy is a contact
sport.
Every
vote matters, y'all.
Exactly.
We've seen that before.
Article 2 in our United States Constitution is the president.
Right.
So Article 1 is the people. Article 2 is the president. That means the people's will always comes before the president's ambitions. And we need that check and balance back in office today.
For sure.
So how we reassert our power, how we put the president in check with the presidential powers is by using our Constitution. You have a Republican Party in office today that refuses to hold the president accountable.
Yeah.
Who refuses to even conduct common sense investigations. I'll put it this way. If someone's name appears over 38,000 times in the Epstein files.
Yes. Thank you.
Which is more times than God's own name appears in the Bible. Fact. 38,000 times in the Epstein files. More than God's own name in the Bible.
Okay.
And you're unwilling to investigate that guy, yet Europe is deposing and getting rid of their monarchs. And we are afraid to even launch an investigation. What does Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, say? Oh, but the Dow is above 50,000 points.
Come on now.
Who cares? I don't know anyone who really participates in the stock market like that.
Yeah.
But I do know everyone in my life is passionate about making sure that children are protected.
Absolutely.
Everyone I know agrees that child pornography or child harm is absolutely 100% wrong.
Absolutely
It needs to be met with a strong spine, strong law, and never, ever, ever given an ounce to breathe.
Yeah. And above even him being the president, do you think a lot of why he gets away with what it is that he gets away with is because before he became president, he was one of the most powerful men financially, business-wise?
I think there's that, that he does have a lot of sway in terms of financial power. I think he also is quite clever about exploiting and blackmailing people. There's a history of that. Yes. He also is really, really adept and skilled at using the legal process as a tool or a weapon to punish others. Yeah. Exhausting other people in endless lawsuits. He knows that he has the money and that they don't, and eventually he will win. He just needs to run the clock out in the courts. So I think Donald Trump has been effective also because just the same thing I'm doing now. I'm not mincing my words. I'm not pulling punches. I'm telling you exactly how it is.
Absolutely.
That's what Donald Trump got elected on.
Yeah.
Not
his bluntness for sure.
Exactly that. We can do the same damn thing, but we're Missouri Democrats. So we do it with morality. We do it while treating people with dignity. Yeah. I'm a veteran, you know, and I learned this as a veteran. There's a way to deliver a heavy hit with a soft blow.
Absolutely.
That's what being a good leader is.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is not a good leader. Mark Alford is not a good leader. And I just validated this, In our state of Missouri, at the federal and statewide levels, there is nobody who has served on the active duty military. Never. Not once. Sam Graves is the only one, and he served in the Guard, which is honorable service. I'm not taking away from that. But there is a difference, though, between Sam Graves and the rest of the class.
That's what I'm saying. And think about that and break that down.
The rest of them are ready to put your sons and daughters in war, expend their lives for you, and they have never once even served a day.
Won't go. You know what I'm saying?
I spent 4 years in the desert.
Yeah.
I know what it's like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say, today when we're putting the president in check, we have to speak with a spine, with our full chest,
Absolutely,
and not be afraid. I'm a candidate who's Hispanic and Latino, right here in the state of Missouri. And just a point of fact, we've never had a Hispanic or a Latino federal candidate win a major party nomination in this state.
It's time,
right?
What August? What? It's
August
time.
4th. August 4th.
Oh, Joseph Herrera, come on.
Jordan Herrera.
Sorry,
No, you did that to me earlier too.
I did. I definitely
That's my
did.
fault. That's my fault.
Jordan. And then also, while we're talking about Mr. Herrera, I want to give a big shout out to William. Shout out to his campaign manager, William. William is the one who put him onto URBNKC and said, you got to come out to this podcast because they're all about Kansas City. They're all about community. They're all about the people. Go talk to them. You know what I'm saying? And you're here. So I really appreciate that because it takes a lot to come in front of not only, me, but a live audience of people ready to kind of put their opinions out there. So I also applaud you for that as well.
Absolutely.
Let's get back to the comments. What are we talking about here? I've got someone who said, I've asked you this question before, but I'm worried about losing my job to AI. Your thoughts on universal basic income or how the country can deal with potentially millions of jobs lost to AI? That's a great question.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really appreciate that. And Scott and I have known each other kind of vaguely over the years. We haven't really gotten a chance to meet in person, but we've chatted and communicated over the several years about
Thanks for that
issues here in Kansas City. And so I appreciate your question. Yes, Scott showed up on a live yesterday or 2 days ago. I get confused on how many of these I'm on. But he asked this very similar question. And it's a great question to ask because I'm an attorney. If AI is coming for someone's job, it's attorneys first. We all know that.
For sure. Okay.
So
many categories at risk. That's crazy.
But you know what? You talk to a lot of musicians and artists. So let's take a different approach. Let's talk about art. Like the green screen here behind us, all of this art behind us should be trademarked, right?
For sure.
Okay, good. It is trademarked then. If it's not, and say this is going out on the internet, right? And say you want to lift this off and you want to digitally remove her and I from the image and you want to steal this logo and everything else behind us and you throw that into an AI generator. Technically today, if it changes enough of it, it could be your new trademark, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound so bad in the trademark world until you get companies that look so similar that you get product confusion.
Absolutely.
Then we have an issue there. Mm-hmm. Another way that this could present a problem is say you're a songwriter.
Yeah.
And you want to put your music out on, say, SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Well, now it's in the public domain.
Yeah.
And if somebody off of SoundCloud decides to steal your lyrics and throw it into an AI generator and just change enough of it, they can steal your work. So absolutely, we need lawyers who are experienced in AI and technology. I am trained as a technology and entrepreneurial lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I've only practiced constitutional law, my concentration from Southwestern Law School was in technology and entrepreneurial law.
Absolutely.
We need attorneys and lawyers and professionals who know how to work with the digital infrastructure that currently exists and also fight for digital privacy, bringing back or installing digital privacy, as well as putting barriers on AI on how much they can steal from us or use in terms of like the public sector. But also I'm going to throw this out there. Grok just got hit for this, and this isn't new to Grok. This has happened before. Grok earlier last year got hit by the EU because folks were able to manipulate real images of people into nude images.
Come on now.
Right. Oh. That's why we need lawyers who are experienced with AI.
Real life humans that know what's going on.
Right. But not only just AI. Here's where it comes into trouble with our Constitution.
Yeah.
The freedom of speech.
Yes.
Because technically, any adult content falls under freedom of speech.
Right.
So if you're manipulating an image and it's such that it is now an artistic piece, maybe you've changed enough of the person and you've only kept a certain amount of the face features, is it now art?
Right.
Is it now different? And that's what we need to navigate and explore and really define. Yeah. And also when it comes to children being put in these situations.
For sure.
There was this is true. This has happened. A person had done this, manipulated an inappropriate image of someone under the age of 18, replicated it, made this image into hundreds of thousands of different other things, but used the same face. This child will continue to be, having to relive this trauma, even though it's, an artistic thing now.
Yeah.
It's it's important that we have people in office today who are willing to talk about these issues. And look, we live on I-70.
For sure.
If you're watching it here in Missouri, you got to know this. I-70 across our state is a corridor for trafficking.
Yeah.
This is an issue that hits every Missourian intimately, and if it hasn't yet, it will now.
It's a huge topic. It's a huge topic. Kansas City, they always say, is like in the middle of the map and where like all the highways meet,
Yeah.
It's huge for that type of stuff.
So for AI infrastructure, Scott, that's one of the issues that needs to change. Now, as it rolls out, and say we're talking about mass, job loss or job redistribution, I don't believe that will happen overnight. And even if it does, I had said this the other night, even if AI does start to phase out career fields, I believe that we will retool and we will be smart, just like we were through the Industrial Revolution when farming equipment displaced thousands of jobs that were farm workers. We found new ways to keep people employed. And quite frankly, we do need investment in our farming and agricultural industry. We do need technology there. So, if AI does come in and start to replace things, there are sectors that have vacancies in them.
That could really use it and utilize it in a proper way.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally agree.
He also brought up universal basic income, which is a talking point that's been used in more socialist circles and more progressivist circles. I don't think we are there as a nation. I truly don't think we're there as a nation. And here, it's just the numbers, okay? As a nation, we bring in around 30 to 32, maybe $33 trillion in terms of revenue for our country. Some of that does go toward our national debt. A lot of it does. We're accumulating trillions of dollars in interest on the debt. So why I'm saying like universal basic income is probably not going to happen anytime soon is because, well, we've been in war for over 2 decades and the president is drawing us into a likely 3 more wars. But over the last 2 decades, there wasn't a single revenue tax that was raised to pay for the wars.
Right.
So it's not really a good time to talk about universal basic income when we are nearing the point where our infrastructure as a government is so fundamentally underfinanced
for sure
that it is barely able to stay alive. And here's the other thing that folks aren't factoring in with this current administration.
Yeah.
Just last year alone, it was the most expensive government. And here's why. Not only was the national budget the highest it's ever been, about $1.2 trillion. That's the most it's ever been. But in addition to that, we have to now return nearly $300 billion in inappropriately acquired tariff money from American business owners.
Come on.
With all of the extra stuff that's now been added for DHS and anti-ICE and plus the tariffs and everything else that this administration has done wrong, it's costing us roughly about 1.6 to 1.8 trillion dollars for that 1 year.
Woo!
1 year.
That's a lot of money, y'all.
That's a
crazy.
ton of money.
That is a ton of money. Well, you talked about where it was Southwestern that you went.
Yes.
We had talked a little bit before we went live about copyright laws and kind of, your information that about copyright laws. This is something I talk quite a lot about on my podcast, and those who you quite often know. But a lot of people here, local artists in general, aren't really familiar with copyright laws. Can you give people just a little bit of a glimpse of like what should be copyrighted as an artist and like why that is important?
No, that's a great. So first, let's talk about how you copyright.
Yeah.
So first, it's when you record the media and put it down, it's copyrighted. You don't have to do anything other than that. But now it comes to defending the copyright. And
Absolutely.
That's where you might need an attorney like me or a copyright lawyer or someone skilled in intellectual property.
Right.
So with one track, we're just going to assume one song, one track. You're going to have backing vocals, that's a copyright. You're going to have your main vocals, that's a copyright. You're going to have instrumentals, that's a copyright. You're going to have the medium on which you're laying it down. So maybe it's a CD or a cassette or a vinyl. Those are all 3 different copyrights. So you're going to have a copyright for that.
Yeah. You're
going to need artwork for that, album cover
Absolutely.
or the record label, whatever it is. That's a copyright.
Yeah.
So if you're an artist,
each piece,
that's how you make money off of one song. It's not one copyright.
Yeah.
You leverage 6 out of 1, and then
Mhm.
you leverage that copyright over and over and over, and you would exploit that copyright by selling it to other people. You lay down the beat, and then you sell the beat, right? But you don't sell the lyrics.
Right.
If they want your lyrics, or if they want to sing that or whatever, they want to tweak it, sure. Pay for the copyright, though.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
And
why it's important, y'all. Put the pieces together.
So important. And the reason why I said as soon as you write it down, it's a copyright.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what it is.
Sure.
That's all it takes is to put it down.
Yeah.
Now, where you're putting it down at is what matters. So say I write something on Facebook and it's a poem. That's public domain now.
For sure.
I just let the entire world have access to
Absolutely.
it. Right? It's not a copyrighted item. For
Right.
that, you will need to seek an actual copyright designation and get it copyrighted, then put it on the internet.
That's right.
Then if anyone steals it, then you defend the copyright.
Right.
But if you're just putting it out there, you're giving everybody free
You're
access
giving
to it.
everybody free access. Come
Same
on,
way
I
if
say
you
that
want
all
a
the time.
patent.
Yeah.
If you have a great idea for an invention, here's the first thing you do. Tell no one.
Thank you.
You tell
Nobody.
no one. Zero. Not your
Tell
mom,
anybody.
not your friend,
Yeah.
not your colleague, nobody. The second you tell someone else outside of whoever is working on the patent,
Yeah.
the patent is public.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yep.
If anybody knows about the patent before it's patented,
Yep.
it's public.
It's public domain
And you
now.
will not get it.
Yep.
You will not get
That
it.
is so crazy when you think about it all,
Yeah.
y'all. But there's laws to all this. There's rules. There's a rule book to it. Do your research. There's so much more. And I love that we're having a conversation about politics, but somehow this ties into the entertainment industry as well. Like this is business, y'all. And business comes first. I tell everybody, even about the entertainment industry, it takes 15, 20% talent, but 85, maybe whatever percent of the business. That's what really is the biggest part, y'all. It's the business. Let's go back to the comments. Lasagna said, how do you feel about fathers getting full custody of their children if the mother is unfit?
Well, I think that's the right way the court process is supposed to work. I think where you're coming at with this, Lasagna, is okay. So if the mother is unfit, and so my brother, I'll tell this through an anecdote. My brother had 2 daughters with his first wife named Keely, and wonderful girls.
Yeah.
But I'll admit she was not the best mom. But what she did do was she would use those children against my brother as gambling or bargaining chips, however you want to describe it, leverage points to get him to do things that he otherwise wouldn't have done.
Right.
And anytime he didn't participate or do anything, she would use the legal process to say, he's getting angry, he's loud, he's got anger issues and all this other stuff. And it was enough to keep my brother from being the father that he should have been.
Yeah.
Now, they also made sure that they developed a relationship with the wife's mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
So when the wife would eventually go to prison for 7 charges, indictments or whatever. They found her guilty of 7 counts of child neglect.
Dang.
It wasn't my brother. It wasn't the father who got the children. It was the grandparents. And it was because of the way that she manipulated and used the court system. So I'm not saying this is the case for everybody. But we have to understand that parents sometimes will use the court process to win against one another.
Yeah.
And they are willing to use their children as a tool to win against one another.
And then it just becomes a battle of 2 human beings and not what's best for the kids. Yeah.
I love that you use that phrase because that is the phrase that everybody out there needs to know. What is in the best interest of the child?
Babies.
The best interest and welfare of the child. And if you've ever been in family law, you'll hear that phrase over and over and over and over again because it's not about who is maybe the most competent or educated or has the best job. It's which parent has the best interests and welfare for the child.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it does kind of appear like maybe the mom might be that person by default. Sure. And in a lot of situations, it is true.
For sure.
Dads often do work longer hours, but that's a product of sexism. Let's be honest.
Right.
Depending women
on
get
the
paid less on
situation and the person,
less on the dollar, and it's usually women who have to give up their careers.
Right.
So let's be honest. The only reason why men are out there making more money and making more hours to raise a family is because 1, that's a societal standard that we put on men, and 2, we also make sure that women don't make enough as men and that their jobs go first. Right? It's terrible. I don't believe in that. I don't.
Well, because I
that.
barely ever see a man being like, "Well, I'll just stay home. You just
Great point.
You go work." You know what I'm saying? They're also not volunteering to do that job. You know what I'm saying?
No, very rarely. Very, very rarely.
Yeah. Definitely. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would say in terms of like full custody and that sort of thing. We should be re-examining how courts are looking at this process, though, and making sure that it's fair and evaluated. There isn't really a whole lot of appeal authority in family court. So that's one area that I would look at to change the law is the appeal authority or the review process.
I can absolutely agree. Okay, Dave, our studio producer, said, how do your political views intersect with your religious views? Great question.
That is a really great question, especially for Missouri.
Yeah.
Because we have an issue on the ticket nearly every year, women's right to reproduction choice and decision with their provider. Some folks just drop that down to abortion access only, but there's so much more required to ensure that if you are moving in that direction of that type of a procedure, that you've been well informed, you know the consequences that are going to happen to your actual body hormonally,
absolutely,
and then also mental health wise, what's going to happen to mom or not necessarily mom, and I don't mean that inappropriately, but at that time pregnant person, what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if we do not have the systems in place to care for that person without judgment, but extending dignity, then we are failing. So where my faith intersects with this, I am a Catholic. I believe that people should have children if that is an option. I grew up in poverty, though. I often wonder if my parents weren't forced to have 3 kids under the age of 25, would they have become violent alcoholics? Would I have known childhood hunger, neglect, poverty? Would I have grown up normal? Would I have had a better shot at opportunity? So I don't believe in forced birth, but I also don't use language that the other side uses. And so I'm just going to throw it out there like this. And I do this in almost every town hall. I ask people, out of the 2 terms that we use, pro-life and pro-choice, by a silent show of hands, raise your hand if you actually 100% believe in both terms and that it actually defines the issue and how you feel fully about it. I've never seen a single hand raised, ever. Because we both can agree it's far more nuanced.
Far more than that, right? It's
far
not
more
just
than that.
Black and white. There's a big gray area there.
So let's talk about it, what it really is. They are pro-birth. We support life. And what I mean by that is I am focused on a Medicare for all option. I do believe a public insurance healthcare plan is the way to get there. But here's why I have this belief. I don't think if you're a single mom going into a delivery room, you should leave with bankruptcy.
That part.
I don't think if you're a young family and you go into a delivery room, you should leave with trying to find loans to pay for your healthcare debt.
Absolutely.
That's not a way to start a family. And that's why young people aren't having families. I also don't believe in forcing people to have children when we don't have SNAP, when we don't have WIC, when we don't provide a support system that's available. Also, by the way, single parents who are having children have to go right back to work with either 1, 2, or sometimes more jobs. What are we doing for young parents? This is not the America of the 50s, 60s, or 70s. This is a different century, my friends.
Absolutely.
So what we need to do here, now I learned this from my sister-in-law, and at the time when I was married, she told me about a community milk bank in Texas. However, the mom who was running it, she went out of town, the freezer went down, milk went bad. By the time the family got home, freezer was back up. They didn't know. A lot of kids got sick. Nobody got injured or harmed, but a lot of kids got sick. And that's the danger of a community milk bank. For young parents and moms, single moms in particular, who are going back to work, this is why we need a national milk bank. I am the only Democrat and probably the first person to talk about the establishment of a national milk bank.
I think that's an amazing idea.
But that's how we show out and show up for parents and young families. That's how we show we are support life Democrats. Furthermore, we make sure that, it's my firm belief that when Donald Trump took away USAID, he ripped out the soy and corn market from our farmers. He gutted the cattle industry for our farmers. It is my firm belief that if the federal government takes away an industry from you, it is their responsibility to provide a market for you.
For sure. I totally agree.
Why in the hell are our kids not being fed meals at breakfast and lunch? And why in the hell are all of our VA bases, military bases, not being sourced with the food that comes from our farmers?
Absolutely.
We get most of that stuff from places like Cisco and everything else. That's just sort of not really great food. And we don't know if it's coming from this country at all times. It's probably not. We need to support our farmers domestically. And if the federal government devastates your market, I will fight to find you a different one.
It's so important. I think that is so important. Yeah, because totally agree. I mean, and then we were talking about, was it last year or so? I think that the president and his people or whatever were really shutting down the government and letting go a lot of the government employees and the IRS employees and everything. With that being said, that tied in with just like the unemployment rates in Kansas City or in Missouri, like as a whole.
Yeah.
What is your vision, I guess, to help, I don't know, like activate something different in the Congress to like bring attention to that, you know, to those particular issues in the unemployment and how people are struggling in those markets that are being taken from the government completely.
Yeah.
How do we change that? Like what attention do we bring to that to make, I don't know, to make changes?
Absolutely. So we do need economic investment on Main Street, and whether that's in downtown Kansas City or in Sedalia, Missouri, both main streets are important. How we get that done is by stopping the attack on small businesses.
Yeah.
So right now under the SBA, the 8A business loan program, which usually helps out minority-based business owners, Hispanic, Latino, Black owners of businesses, but it's also been opened up, and so it's no longer minority-based, it's economic class-based. So if you are of an economic class that struggles to open businesses, the 8A business loan program was for you. There's also a separate program called DBE, or disenfranchised business entities. Those were your veteran-owned, disability-owned, women-owned businesses. And what these programs allow for folks to do as a small business owner is you get to compete with everyone else and sell your products to the federal government, which is usually one of the biggest buyers in the country every year, right?
Sure.
Huge market. Well, now you have to comply with the same financial reporting requirements that large, huge corporations have to do.
Crazy.
Mom and pop shops on Main Street cannot afford an attorney on retainer, let alone an accountant on retainer to do that.
Right.
And here's the kicker. On December 5th, 2025, this administration, through the SBA, gave small business owners 3 weeks to comply. And that's 3 weeks to get 5 years worth of financial records and reports collected together. Otherwise, they were going to be suspended from the program.
Yeah.
That has already happened. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses have been pushed out of the program. And keep in mind, it's minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, disability-owned businesses.
Wild. That is so wild.
Very much. So that's one way. Another is we have to talk about monopoly and antitrust law also.
Okay.
So why we're not seeing competition like we used to in our country, right? Let's just take our grocery store. Across the United States, there's roughly about 5 or 6 grocery chains that own everything.
Yeah.
They just have different brands and everything else. So we'll say Walmart is one of them. Hy-Vee is owned, I think Hy-Vee is one of them. If they're not, then they're owned by somebody else. Maybe we'll say Kroger or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But there's only about 4 or 5 major grocery stores that own all of the brands underneath it. Now, within your grocery store, there's only about 11 or 12 big companies inside every grocery store. This is very easy to Google. What companies own everything inside of a grocery store? It'll pull up a graphic. It'll show you a pie chart to show you the 11 or 12 companies that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that's a problem, right? The reason why we're not seeing competition is because there's monopoly everywhere. There's such suffocation in the market space that if you are a small business owner, how are you going to get into one of these major chains when they only do business with these major conglomerations or organizations like PepsiCo or Unilever? And if you're not one of those, or Johnson & Johnson, you're not going to have as much of a fair shot. The problem also with these large grocery stores is they've suffocated out mom and pop grocery stores. So you used to be able to sell your artisan made, your crafted products through those, but they're all drying up. And anyway, that's why monopoly and antitrust and attorneys who know how to operate within that law is so important.
Super important. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, another comment. Let's see. How about, I love this. Said this is bigger than people know. Damn, I wish Kansas City would tap in for real. Come on, let them know. And
let them know, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all got to do our research about the people who are running in our political, scene. And a lot of people I know, y'all, we would just be like, I don't like this person, so I'm not voting.
Mhm.
Votes matter. Each and every single little vote matters, even if it's just at this level, the local level, if it is at the federal level, every single vote matters, y'all.
Do you want to hear something crazy with numbers? In our congressional district, Mark Alford didn't win. 208,000 votes went to the couch. 208,000 people didn't vote. They didn't participate. They didn't show up. 208,000, and that's on both sides of the aisle. 208,000 people didn't vote. Mark only got 196,000 votes, and his competitor Jeanette, she got about 96,000 votes.
Wow.
Now, I will say in my campaign, there are 3 other Democrat candidates who've already dropped out of the race. They've endorsed my campaign, and they're a part of my campaign.
Phenomenal.
That's huge.
Yeah.
We just got #1 position on the ballot. We've been working our butts off, and thank God we got that. That's huge.
Yeah.
Put it in another way, we have been in 22 out of 24 counties now. We're going to the final ones this coming week.
That's amazing.
And oh, by the way, I'm doing this based off of no money. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a whole lot to my name.
Just out here getting it.
I live on disability income only, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm a disabled veteran.
Right.
That's the only income I make. It's hard. It's really, really tough. But I'm also showing out and proving you can do this.
Yeah.
You can fight against Citizens United, and you can state with your full chest, I want money out of politics, and you can still run, and you can still be successful.
For sure.
You can still fight every single day. Now, God willing, I will never take a single political action committee dollar, but for me to not do that, I need you to go to the website and talk to me.
Come on.
Go to my website.
Check it out in the description. Okay, Karen said, let's see here.
Oh, hey, Karen.
Constitutant in West Belton. Okay. I'm a blue dot in a very red community. How will you reach out to my community?
Hey, so yeah, you're over there in West Belton. What I want to say about the Belton-Raymore area is the Herrera for Congress campaign has an office over at 103 South Jefferson Street in Raymore. We are literally 1.5 miles down the street from Mark Alford.
Okay.
So we are making sure he does not go to bed a single night without hearing from me.
You gotta see.
Yeah, so that's one way. We literally open an office in the district in Cass County. So you can stop by anytime, day or night. Well, maybe not at night because I won't be there. But Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 4:30, we will be there at 103 South Jefferson Street. We'll have yard signs, other kinds of swag. We have our merch store going live this week, so that's another great way. But here's how I show up for folks in Belton.
Yeah.
Mark Alford just put Belton and Cass County on the chopping block.
Oh.
They said, we'll throw these guys out there and we'll put a detention center in our backyard here in Cass County. He said that for Belton and for Harrisonville. Nobody even asked him. He just said, I was going to do it. Okay, well, there's a problem.
Right.
So what do? Well, I called the county commissioners in Cass County, and I'm like, hey, this can't be true. Tell me what's up. What's happening? And Bob Houston told me what happened. And through their staff, rather, they told me what had happened. And I said, okay, well, great. I'm going to host a protest outside of the Cass County Justice Detention Center. You guys should expect anywhere from 500 to 800 people, which is how many people we normally get.
Right.
Within a day, they changed their minds. They started changing their statements, and then they were saying, oh, we didn't actually say that. Well, wouldn't you know, by this point, Mark Alford was already getting ready to speak in front of veterans. And so I made sure that I was going to that veterans meeting.
Of course.
And so I held his feet to the fire. So for example, when you get a detention center in your backyard, 20% equity of your home is gone immediately.
Yeah.
Yet he calls himself a real estate agent, right? A real estate agent. He says, oh, I know housing. I'm a real estate agent. Okay, well then how did you not factor in that you were going to knock off 20% equity in everyone's home by putting this in their backyard? And oh, by the way, he lives in Cass County. He lives in Lake Lotawana. Actually, I think that's Jackson County.
Yeah.
He lives in Jackson County. It's Lake Lotawana. He could have offered that up, but he didn't. Isn't that interesting?
Very.
I mean, the other thing about, staying focused in Raymore and Belton and the greater rural area here in Missouri, let's be honest, but Democrats have been afraid to go out to those spaces.
Yeah.
My campaign manager, he's 29 years old and he's black. we go out to these rural spaces. We know we are not welcome, but Will is strong. Yeah. I am strong. We don't close our mouths. We don't stay inside for anybody.
Yeah,
we let ourselves be known, and it takes that kind of strength. And Will he's amazing. So if you guys haven't met my campaign manager, Mr. Will Thomas, he's honestly one of the best guys I've ever met. He's the sharpest person in Kansas City when it comes to politics. He can get things done that even people who've been in politics for 20 years still haven't been able to accomplish. That's phenomenal.
I'll have to meet him and shake his hand one day. But shout out to him. Yeah. He definitely got Mr. Herrera up on the podcast and was like, you got to go see URBNKC. You got to go see what they're about. So that's phenomenal. Let's get to another question. This one was interesting. I read an article today, so I thought I'd ask you about it. Under the U.S. Constitution, y'all, Article 5, 34 states are required to pass a similar resolutions before a convention can be called. Kansas currently just became the 13th state to do so, with Missouri also passed. How do you feel about the fact that Kansas has become the 13th state to pass a resolution that nationally proposes a constitutional amendment capping the number of terms that an individual can serve in the U.S. House and Senate?
I think it's wonderful. Early on in my race, when I was running against Emanuel Cleaver, actually, I was running against a Democrat to hold a Democrat accountable. And that's important, friends. Yeah. Whether you're a red person or a blue person, everybody deserves to be held accountable. Everybody deserves to be scrutinized, including me when I win my election.
For sure.
That being said, I'm so sorry. It was the constitutional amendment was for term limits.
For sure.
Essentially, it's term limits. How many times a person can run. That is the right process. A lot of folks kind of ask, are you going to run on term limits? And sure, I can say that all day. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Because you need a constitutional amendment. No legislator, no legal body at the federal level can change your term limits at all. It has to be through a constitutional amendment or a Supreme Court decision. And the Supreme Court is not going to go against what the Constitution very clearly and blatantly already states. Yep. So I would say, yes, I support term limits. It's finding the right number. Yep. Currently, I believe the number that's being discussed and talked about the most is 12 for House of Representatives, which would be 6 cycles or 6 times you could run at 2 years each.
Yeah.
2 for Senate, 12 years. So that's 2 times that you can serve as a senator for 6 years each.
Right.
And then I believe the same amount of years was also discussed for Supreme Court justices at 12 years. And I'm not sure about the justices, but if not, that's my inclusion. I believe they need to be limited as well.
I totally agree. I think if the president's terms has to be limited, that anybody in any of the House, the Senate, the Congress in general, it should be limited. Like, nobody should just be able to serve, I feel like, unlimited amount of times. I don't know. Like, that just seems kind of far-fetched, but it's our reality. That's actually how it is.
And I think that's one of those aspects of constitutional modernization.
Yeah.
And there aren't really a whole lot of constitutional modernists out there or revisionists out there. But for me, I do call myself a constitutional modernist. I believe that we do need an updated Bill of Rights, a 21st century Bill of Rights for our way forward.
Yeah.
For me, it's very simple. Those come in the form of, we had 3 goals when we set out in our Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And in those life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, I think it's time that we make those no longer just like aspirational goals that we are achieving or striving toward, but rather we make them constitutional amendments. For example, life. For me, that comes in the form of universal health care, a Medicare for all option. That we all deserve a quality life, and to have a quality life in the United States, it requires a quality healthcare system. We need to look at our health as an infrastructural investment and need to an American way of life, and not as a luxury for those who can afford it. Liberty being, in the 13th Amendment, we still currently have legalized slavery in our federal prisons. Our 13th Amendment needs to be updated. It needs to be modernized. All forms of slavery, all forms of human bondage, all forms of servitude, including economic servitude, need to be rooted out and removed. So that's liberty. And also in this, for-profit prisons is also what I'm talking about. They are a thing of the past. In my version of a modernized constitution, it is the state's responsibility to care for you if the state is going to incarcerate you.
For sure.
That is my belief. And it is not the state's opportunity to make $1 off of your back being inside of a prison longer.
For sure.
Happiness. It is my belief that each and every American deserves a safe, affordable, thorough, and accessible education.
Absolutely.
Meaning there is no reason why, if we know that education is the one tool to lift you out of lift you into a next economic tier, to pull you out of poverty, but we are limiting who gets educated, then we've got a problem.
It's a huge problem. It's
Education
like, do you want to
is
keep
a
them all
right.
down? Like what, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
The next three are my privacy rights to modernize our Constitution. You should have a privacy right over your marriage. Technically today, we use a penumbra effect, and there's really not a strong constitutional right of privacy over your marriage. We need that. Gay marriage is on the chopping block already. We need a constitutional law or amendment over privacy related to your marriage. We need a constitutional amendment related to your bodily autonomy, your privacy over your body, that you and your provider get to make those decisions and no one else.
Yeah.
We also need a privacy right guaranteed over your digital privacy right, your digital biometrics, that people cannot make money off of you, knowing that you are the currency originator. You are the way that currency is made, but yet you are excluded from consent and who gets to make money off of you and consideration in the profit.
Wild.
Last, my Seventh Amendment is actually term limits. That for
limits.
Our modernized Constitution, we need term limits. And under
Necessary.
those seven...
Necessary, yeah.
Yeah. Under those seven, that for me is what we need and deserve in a modernized Constitution. Those are things
totally
I am
agree.
fighting for and working toward.
I love that.
And I did bring up the Declaration, so I do want to read you guys one thing really, really brief. And it's a definition of tyranny.
Okay.
And this was written in 1776 by Thomas Jefferson and signed by John Hancock and all the others, right?
That's right.
So let's go with the Declaration of Independence. Our founding fathers wrote down what tyranny looks and sounds like, all right? So this is it. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. Word for word from the Declaration. He has affected, you're exactly right. He is affected to render the military independent and superior to civil power, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us without our local consent, for protecting them by mock trial for the murders which they commit, from punishment for any murders which they should commit, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world through sweeping tariffs and economic decrees imposed without representation, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of a fair trial or a trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, or removing people without due process of law. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress, and in the most humble of terms, our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. If a prince or a false king, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, they are unfit to be the ruler of a free people. We decided that 250 years ago. I hope you'll listen back to that. That is the definition as written by our founding fathers of what a tyrant is.
That's wild as hell. And with that being said, you know what I'm saying? Let's go into the topic of ICE.
Yes.
Yes.
Great segue.
You know what I'm saying? What's going on in the country right now and the devastating news that continues to sweep the country on some of these more not so polite ways that they are going about whatever it is that they think that they're doing.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of ICE and how, I guess, the presidential people, the Congress, or whoever it is that's running the show, is going about how they're getting their job done? What do we think?
I love that. And fill the chat up with any questions about
Please.
ICE, please. I'm happy to answer those, but let's start with where I practice. I'm a constitutional lawyer. So let's talk about Renee Good and Alex Preddy, two individuals who were well documented, very famously known, that they were murdered in our streets, right? They were not provided a fair opportunity to, state their case, defend themselves. Due process was ignored.
Yeah.
excessive use of force was applied. We don't even know if they should have been lawfully stopped. What contains all of that?
Exactly.
Well, it's actually your United States Constitution. It's your Fourth Amendment. So let's start there. Well, let's start with due process.
Okay.
How people are stopped and how people are being detained and things like that. So right now, the president and through DHS has a program that if you look brown, they can stop and ask you if you're a citizen. That's racial profiling.
Absolutely.
There are numerous Supreme Court cases that have already determined that you cannot do this. If you're interested in that type of area of law, just look up Terry Stops, Stop and Frisk Law. That's where you're going to find your answer. That's where you're going to find the Supreme Court cases that guide us in this answer and this analysis. You cannot racially profile people. You cannot stop anybody because they have melanin in their skin or because they have an accent on their, the way they speak.
Right.
Not legally permissible. So we've got a problem with due process. That's coming. Now, this is a federal agency. That's in your 14th Amendment. But say the police, Kansas City Police Department, say they go too far and they do something wrong. Well, that's your 5th due process amendment. So it depends on who's doing the action. The 5th due process comes from your state. The 14th comes from the federal government. But both are at work here because sometimes your state government is working with your federal government, violating your due process as well. So also with ICE, we're going to talk about how Renee Good and Mr. Preddy were stopped, right? That goes into your 4th Amendment first.
Yeah.
Do they have an available warrant? Obviously, in this sort of situation, there wouldn't be one. It's in the moment decision making. And so what do you need for a valid warrant or to even have one that would, for a valid stop and frisk or any of these kinds of things? Well, in this situation, you have to believe if it's a stop and frisk that they have the capability to commit violence, that they are going to commit violence or that you just saw them commit violence. None of that is evident or present with Renee Good or with Mr. Alex Preddy. None of it. So there is no opportunity to say that they had to jump in because they were in imminent harm or imminent danger, or there was a high degree of likelihood that they would experience grievous bodily harm. Those are legal phrases for a reason. That's not evident or present. And you cannot tell me that a person who is kneeled down by 4 or more officers on his stomach and getting shot 10 times in the back, and you see one of the shooters do one of these after he's shot in the street.
You know what I'm saying?
You cannot tell me that that person ever had an opportunity to resist. What you can say for certain is Mr. Clappy Hands is a murderer. And everyone else who facilitated that murder deserves to be held accountable.
Yeah.
There's one way that they can get out of this, and it's through immunity, right? And that's what Pete Hegseth and the president and J.D. Vance all said absolute immunity applies because they are federal ICE officers. First of all, that is fundamentally not true. It is not true. Immunity only applies if they had a good faith belief that they either were going to experience grievous bodily harm or they were going to, experience some kind of death immediately.
Right.
Which is why you saw Kristi Noem immediately call both people domestic terrorists, even though neither one was doing anything that could have ever injured an officer.
Harmed them at all. Right.
Furthermore, if you're an officer and your gun is already out pointed at people, you've already made the decision.
Yeah.
You've already made the calculation. You cannot tell me that it was a spontaneous, I had to shoot. No, you already had your gun out. You were already ready to kill.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to all of this, we also need to look at the timeline. There's a momentary pause before they start firing. That momentary pause is what we call premeditated and deliberate.
Yeah.
Premeditated and deliberate murder. That is your cooling off period. They had every opportunity to cool off and they didn't. Instead, they fired, which means it's murder.
Yeah.
Point blank, simple. No ifs, ands, or buts. So we're talking about our 4th and our 8th Amendment, though. 4th Amendment, they've gone too far. They didn't even have an available warrant to stop the guy, right? Or even frisk. He was doing nothing wrong. Right. Nothing wrong. 8th Amendment is your cruel and unusual punishment. And it applies at the time of detention, custody, arrest, transportation, incarceration, the whole way through. So if an officer comes up to you and pushes you on the ground and you crack a tooth and all you were doing was going to ask him a question, that's cruel and unusual punishment. That's excessive use of force, and you will win your day in court if you sue him because there's no justifiable reason for it. Right? Now, specifically, This area of law is called Section 1983 law. And for those who want to know, it's 42 USC Section 1983. That is the area of law that tells you how you can sue your government, whether it's police, your governor, your legislator, your mayor. If you want, like the city of Flint, if we wanted to sue the city of Flint because they were putting lead in all of our drinking water and they knew, that's the area of law you have to study, learn from, to then sue the city of Flint. And in that particular instance, it's called Monell liability. So in all of these Section 1983 law, thank you, Cindy. With all of these, when we look at Section 1983, that's a space that we need to change. And fortunately, I'm a constitutional lawyer who's actually practiced these cases in our courtroom. I know the exact words that need to be changed. It's not the whole law, it's just key words. And if we do those key words, we will win. We will be able to hold people accountable. They will be held civilly liable for the wrongs they commit. And what that means is they will pay out of pocket. They will pay out of their homes. They will pay out of their jobs, out of their cars, out of their trust funds, out of everything else. Right now, that stuff is untouchable.
Absolutely. Yeah. So take your day in court, because definitely. We've got a lot coming from the comments here. Let's get into the next question. This one is from Dave. What are your thoughts, Citizens United? Can democracy and capitalism coexist?
Absolutely, they can. So that's a great question, and absolutely, democracy and capitalism can coexist. And it's a question of what kind of democracy do we want. I talked about economic servitude just a moment ago. That's where your Clayton and Sherman Act, or what's commonly known as monopoly and antitrust law, that's where those come into play. So democracy and capitalism can coexist. It's whether or not your elected leaders are willing to work for you and not work for corporations. To work for your vote and not work for your dollar. I grew up poor. I know what it's like to sacrifice, to live without. I don't need your money. I need your vote. And that doesn't cost you anything. So for me, what I have found to be successful is to tell my story, to walk my truth, and to let my feet do the talking more than my mouth. And I talk a lot, but to let my feet do the talking.
For sure, the actions speak louder.
Exactly that. And so I would say, let's see, let me go back to the question. I want to make sure. Can democracy
William's
and capitalism...
Okay.
Hey, William. Let's see. Out of 183 nations across the globe, the majority are democratic and the majority are capitalist. So if we were ever to break away from a capitalist society, 170 out of 183, maybe there's 185 countries. There are a couple of civil wars, so there might be two more. So basically 170 out of 183 countries are capitalist. So yeah, it can work, and it works well in Europe. It works well in other nations when we have like either ranked choice voting or free, open, and fair elections like they have in France. I love their systems. And if anyone's interested in this area of study, it's called comparative political systems. Hit me up. I'm happy to teach you about it, show more about it, but it's a very interesting subject area.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That was a great question. I've got one from Karen. If you use the milk bank as something you support, Alfred is going to ridicule you. Who's Alfred?
Oh, that's Congressman Mark Alford.
Oh, okay.
Well, if Congressman Mark Alford wants to ridicule me for standing up for women who can't afford Enfamil and Similac because it's $40 a can.
It's milk.
And women and moms, single moms, brand new moms, and young families cannot afford this stuff. And
There's
it's also
plenty of milk.
How many times have you guys heard of a listeria outbreak and then all of the Enfamil and all of the Similac is gone? And then we're left with nothing. So this is immediately addressing those issues. And I expect Congressman Mark Alford to not be sensitive to women's issues.
For sure.
He's just not. That's okay. He's allowed to be himself. I'm allowed to be me. I'm going to stand up for women. I don't care what Mark Alford does. And here's the other thing about that is I get my confidence from my Christ. Not from what Mark Alford says about me or what Mark Alford does or whatever. My confidence comes from Jesus. It doesn't come from anyone else. And that includes criticism and words of praise. I don't go to bed with those on my mind. I only go to bed knowing I am doing His will, His work in the best way that I can. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm going to be all right. So
500%.
That's.
I love that answer.
I don't mind what Mark does or says.
He
can't shake my confidence.
Right.
He can't shake it.
Another question from Dave. He said, do you support reparations for African Americans?
Absolutely. But I will also 100% be truthful with you. William Thomas in there, he just said, "What's up, boss?" underneath your comment. He is educating me on what reparations advocacy needs to look like and sound like. To me, reparations advocacy looks like equity. It looks like, when I study critical race theory, it's not hard to gain a grasp on. It's simply this. If you have never been included at the seat of power or at the table, your voice isn't going to be heard. You're not going to be advocated for. The people at the table don't know your way of life. In a nutshell, that is critical race theory. Expanded, it shows how these systems maybe were subconsciously or even consciously set up to be racist or exclusionary, are still in that capacity. They are exclusionary. Perfect example. I just told everyone here, we as a state have never elected or even had a Hispanic or Latino person as a candidate for a federal office in the state. We've also never had a Hispanic or a Latino person run for a state office in the state and win. Like, that's never happened. So, you know, why this stuff matters and why we bring all of this stuff up, you know, in terms of reparations, it's important, you know, because if those voices are not at the table, we don't get to hear it. We don't get to hear the advocacy. And that's the part that matters most. Whether or not you out there who are listening agree with where reparations are or should not be is irrelevant. It's a talking point. It's a place to start a discussion and to hear people out. And also, it at least addresses what critical race theory has been teaching us the entire time, that there are systems that have been created where people are excluded. It is not that hard. And if you don't believe me, look at what white flight is and how suburbs were created. That is in a perfect example.
So do your research.
Yeah.
Okay.
And redlining. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Redlining led to a lot of suburbs. And it was still very much a policy. And if you don't think it is, then why did the Republican regime here, this MAGA regime rather, they're not Republicans, they're in a cult. They're called MAGA. They used a historically known dividing line, Troost Avenue, all the way through Kansas City, and they cut out the historically black communities from Kansas City proper. They know what they were doing. They used Troost intentionally. They also devastated the Northeast, which is historically Hispanic and black as well. Not only did they put a prison in there without city level discussion on it just recently, but they've also intentionally, Donald Trump and his administration, cracked that district, House District 19, into 3 separate congressional districts.
Wow.
So if you're a school student there, your school is in a different congressional district than where you probably live, which means the person who's advocating for your education and your right to have an education is going to be different than the person who's advocating for your right to have a home that you can live in and afford. That's not good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's wild. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Okay. I think Anna also, she says, I'm confused. Who do we vote for in Johnson County?
Yep.
The district change with
Anna, that's a great question about gerrymandering.
Yeah, gerrymandering. I was like, let me not mess that up.
So she's in Johnson County, which is where Whiteman Air Force Base is at. So thank you, Anna. Johnson County, and this is important for the following counties: Lafayette, Saline, Howard, Boone, Johnson, Pettis, and I think there's one more in there that I might be forgetting. These counties are Jackson County as well. These counties are all in play on the old map and on the new map. So if we're on the new map, they're in the 5th congressional district, and that's now under Emmanuel Cleaver. Okay. They've always been under the 4th, though, which was Congressman Alford. So at our state level, we still do not have a final answer from the Supreme Court or from the courts on what maps we're on. I just shared a video today on my Facebook from People Not Politicians, so please check that out. But essentially where we're at with that is there are enough signatures on the petitions that we should be putting this onto a ballot measure issue in November, meaning we should be running on the historic maps from 2022, meaning that Johnson County, Pettis County, Lafayette, Howard, Boone, and Saline should be part of the 4th district. If they are not, and if we are running on a racist and gerrymandered map, then you will be voting for Emmanuel Cleaver. Either way, Anna, both Emmanuel Cleaver and I are going to be at the Kirkpatrick Luncheon, March 14th in Johnson County. If tickets are still available, guys, please go to the Johnson County Democrats Club page, buy tickets to the Kirkpatrick Luncheon. They need your support. Both
Yeah.
Congressman Cleaver and I will be there supporting the Johnson County Democrats.
Support. I love that.
But that's
Thank you
the
for
answer.
asking about, Johnson
We
County,
both
for
have
sure.
to be out there. But, gerrymandering is huge. So if anyone is confused, please go to my website also or my Facebook page. I talk about this a lot. You can also check out a great resource. This is for everybody. It's so easy. It's davesredistricting.org or DRA 2020. That's all you have to do is DRA 2020 or davesredistricting.org. Just Google that up. It'll take you to the Missouri map and it'll show you our current legislative map.
Nice.
And you'll be able to zoom in by district, by neighborhood, and you'll know exactly what district you're in. If you're in the 4th and you're colored red, you're voting for Jordan Herrera, first name on the ballot. If you're in yellow, you're voting for Emmanuel Cleaver and no one else, just right. Emmanuel Cleaver.
That's right. Come on. My mom is in the comments. This is my mom, Cindy. She said, what changes do we need to make to put us first, to make us well? Cost of living and pay, healthcare, even education. How do we go from just words to actual action? When will it be humans helping humans and not just political BS? Us versus us is disgusting.
I agree. Your mom is really smart. I like this. And I love your question. It's a compound question, so she should be a lawyer if she's not already.
That's why I wanted to be a lawyer, honestly.
So there's a lot in here. So what do we need to do first? So let's start with, you start with cost of living and cost of living.
Yeah.
So like I had mentioned before.
And I'm glad you touched on that, Mom, because that was a question I was going to ask too. So that's perfect. Yeah.
And we danced on it a minute, but let me hit it again another time.
Yeah.
The two biggest reasons why people are finding themselves in homeless shelters today are housing costs, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, 4 out of 10 people say healthcare costs are the reason why they are homeless or home insecure. So the two biggest reasons why people are finding homelessness are housing costs and healthcare. Yeah. Second point. The two biggest groups going into homelessness are women with children, single moms with at least 2 kids, and elderly folks. Elderly folks and single parents or single moms with 2 kids.
Yeah.
And it's because these groups are the most vulnerable in our society.
Absolutely.
One thing we do not have in the Kansas City metro area is a single homeless shelter dedicated to elders at all.
Yeah.
We are not prepared for this economic trouble that is coming down the line. All right. So housing costs. What do we do to drop our housing costs?
Yeah.
Number one, we have to call a national emergency over the housing industry. When the federal government does that, we are able to drop the cost of building materials down to a rock bottom price to hopefully inspire and exploit a building boom.
Yeah.
Second, we need to make sure that this is sustainable and long term, right? So I'm arguing for. Folks might be familiar with LIHTC or Low Income Housing Tax Credits, LIHTC, or Section 8. That's how Section 8 housing is built, LIHTC. I'm arguing for a new program to be structured called MITAC, Middle Income Housing Tax Credits. And through MITAC, the focus is on working family housing, folks in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, to be able to live in a home that they can actually afford, that's properly built as well. And what I'm getting at here is you'll see a lot of new construction going up, but they're in the $300,000 to $400,000 range at a minimum.
Yeah.
You're not seeing $100,000 homes go up, and that's what we need.
For sure.
$80,000 homes, $100,000 homes, $125,000 homes, $150,000 homes.
Yep.
That's what we need. And so the way to get there is making sure we're building them the right way. I don't need a granite countertop. I need a countertop.
That's right. Exactly.
I don't need a porcelain floor. I need a floor.
Absolutely.
That's it. Just give me what I need.
Does it have a roof over my head?
Right.
Fantastic.
I don't need solar shingles.
Exactly.
I just need shingles on it. You know what I mean? So it's just we can work on, increasing our luxury items and doing that and building it in over time.
For sure.
But to give me a ready-made product up front, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And this is a real story also. I was trying to buy a house in 2025 last year. I was still a full-time practicing attorney, making $125,000 a year, plus my disability income. That's added together, excuse me.
Yeah.
So I was making $125K a year. I could not afford a house in Kansas City. I couldn't.
Crazy.
Not one I was willing to buy.
Yeah.
Everything was $350,000 or more, and those homes were built before 1980.
Yeah, that's so wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So those are the two start, right? So we have a national emergency over our housing industry. Yeah. We're going to create a program called MyTech to build affordable homes that are actually ones you can stay in and you can upgrade later, right? Number 3, Rent needs to be addressed and talked about in the same way that we're talking about housing affordability. In our state alone, rent has gone up 20% in 3 years.
And we're still one of the more, it feels like, cheaper states to live in.
True.
Like,
True.
And yet we're over here like struggling trying to make rent happen.
Right.
Like, how is this possible? Like,
did you know that Oregon and California have rent caps?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Most people don't.
Where's our rent cap?
That's how we do it, though, is we
No,
find
for sure.
law that already exists in the United States,
And
like
duplicate
Oregon
it.
and California. They cap at 5% in California, 3% in Oregon.
Okay.
I am arguing we need a national rent cap across the country at
5%.
least 5%. If California can do it, we can do it too. And you have to look at all of the real estate business in California and look what they were able to get done. We can get this done across the nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fourth part of this plan is taking the homeowner and turning them into an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
This goes after the not in my backyard people. I believe firmly that if you have a garage, a basement, or an attic, and you're willing to convert that into a habitable dwelling that is safe and comfortable, you should apply for a micro grant.
Okay.
That should be available from the federal government to help you as a homeowner become an entrepreneur.
There you go.
And open up a space for somebody to rent.
Yeah.
Not only does that create
Such a good
thousands of small business owners,
For
right?
sure.
But we're also immediately addressing the housing shortage because in our country today, there is a housing shortage of anywhere between 4 million and 7 million homes.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier to rent a room/basement than it is an
Than to
entire
build.
house. Yeah.
Yeah. We cannot build our way out of this overnight.
Yep.
And so last, with all of these things that I talk about, all of the programs in housing that need to be addressed, they all come with a rent controlled agreement for at least 10 years or 15 years. That's just how you stabilize markets. Okay. You talked about healthcare. This is a great piece of patent law.
Yeah.
The Bayh-Dole Act says that if you are if you're a university and you've received federal dollars, the federal government gets to say in how much the commodity is that's resulting from that same investment. So if we are investing federal dollars into pharmaceutical research, you, the American taxpayer, you are a shareholder. You, as the shareholder, get a right in how much that cost is. That is my belief. Also, in a Medicare for All option, when we get there, or a public insurance option as an interim vehicle to get us there, the federal government needs to take the reins of haggling down prices for pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
My mother is a diabetic, and every month it is a nightmare on how much she's going to pay.
For sure.
Education, you've seen Democrats go toward federal student loan forgiveness, and it was abandoned. Well, not abandoned. It was defeated 4 times. Missouri is the state that killed it across the country.
Really?
Yeah. Mohila.
Dang,
It was Missouri. And the 2 people who wrote the brief, Joshua Devine and Maria Lanaham, are now federal judges over in the Eastern District in Missouri. Donald Trump promoted them for killing student loans 4 times. And when they were briefing us, these 2 individuals were smiling ear to ear about canceling student loans. And you know what they said? They said this. They said it was a $50 billion giveaway that the president doesn't have. I'm going to remind you that our government in 2025 is the most expensive government, and it is $1.5 to $1.8 trillion now when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
The president didn't have authorization for a budget that high.
Yeah.
At all. And we're talking like he only was approved up to 1.2 trillion. We're around 1.5 to 1.8.
Yeah.
That's far more than $50 billion. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. So I don't want to hear this BS that the United States doesn't have money to forgive student loan forgiveness.
Right.
It is my firm belief that if you've been paying on your loans for greater than 20 years and you're only hitting the compounded interest at this point, the banks never paid back all of the money that we bailed them out with in the early 2000s.
Right.
The airline industry did. The auto industry did. Banks never did. It is my belief that it is time for them to repay the American taxpayer by forgiving the student loan crap, paying it off, returning the money.
I feel that.
That's how I feel. Also, we can do this by attaching a usury cap to student loans, meaning on student loan products, it caps the amount of interest that you can charge on those products. It's been hugely successful in payday loans where you saw, shark loan opportunists who were giving 300, 400% loans.
Yes.
Cannot do that anymore. That is now illegal.
Yeah.
The same thing needs to apply to student loans. I argue that we need to cap it at around 3 to 5% or at inflation, so that way the value of your education doesn't depreciate over time.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, another question from me. How do you feel? This one was a pretty interesting one. I kept seeing.
My
all
mom
over.
is on here, Kathy Robertson.
Oh, come on, Mom.
Go Big Red.
Both of our moms
Otherwise,
are on
I'll
here.
get kicked out of the state.
Oh, okay, there she is. Okay, she said,
Yeah.
"Hey, from Nebraska."
Sorry, I did not
okay,
mean
no,
to
that's
interrupt you.
that's totally cool. I love it. How do you feel about the new law that trans people have to have their birth sex on their identification, stopping and reversing changes for many, many Americans who have already made transitions and those changes on their identification as well?
I get to wear these cool pins today. This one's a retired from the Air Force pin and my little American flag pin that I care about a lot because I stood on a battlefield in Iraq in 2009. At the time, the law of the land was don't ask, don't tell. I was a gay person putting my life, my neck, my body on the line, exposing myself to trauma and war for you guys. Even though the greater majority of Americans didn't think I had a right to exist or live. Trans people have been doing the exact same thing the entire damn time.
Yeah.
To think that trans people don't exist in our military is hilarious and wrong on so many levels because they've been there the entire time and they're people at the end of the day, right? And they've also stood on that battlefield and earned their right. And I want to say this because a lot of people don't know this. In the regular civilian population amongst us, it's about 6% veterans around us, 6%. Yeah. In our congressional district, it's actually 10%. Okay. So around the country, 6%. 4th Congressional District, Missouri, it's 10%. But in the trans community, 20%. 20% of the trans community are veterans. They've served their country. So every anti-trans piece of legislation that I see Republicans jamming down our damn throats is twice as much anti-veteran as anything else that we've seen. These are people who earn the right to live their life as they so choose.
Yeah.
And so let's also talk about freedom of expression, right? You don't get to put limits on the freedom of speech. You don't get to put limits on the freedom of expression. You don't get to practice your exclusionary faith means that people have to live by your exclusionary faith-filled determinations on what is male and what is female. Because guess what? I practice a way different faith than you do. And we might both call ourselves Christian, but I don't believe in that.
Absolutely.
My Jesus never told me any of that.
That's right.
My Jesus never told me how to define how anyone else lives. My Jesus just told me how to love another. Yeah. That's it. My God also never said, go out and find my lost sheep except for them.
Right.
And as soon as someone tells me that part specifically where Christ tells us, go and find my lost sheep except for them, then I'll start listening to you. But it's been a couple of millennia and it hasn't happened. So
and that's not how the story went.
That's not how it works, you know?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So I think for me, for trans folks now who are having to change their identification, it's wrong. It's wrong. What does it matter? You know, who does it affect? You know, and I think it's not hilarious. It's insulting and disgusting that, you know, because I'm an openly gay candidate running in the 4th. And I get asked this mostly by Democrats about my orientation. And the first thing I say is, I'm trying to earn your vote, not your date.
You're right. Exactly.
I don't care about what's between your legs. That's none of my business.
Right. And people's personal private life should be a personal private life.
None of my business.
Thank you.
None of my business.
Yeah.
What's happening here? None of your business.
Yeah.
Unless you're on a date with me, unless we're going to have a meal, unless you're going to, you know, pay my bills or you're going to live with me.
That's right.
None of your business.
And it has nothing to do with you. Not affecting you. Nothing.
But it's always Republicans who claim they believe in limited government, who are ready to bring the executive office, the president, and the Congress itself, Article 1 and Article 2, into your bedroom.
Yeah.
They're ready to bring it into your bathroom to tell you where you can go number 1 and 2 at. Come on.
Right.
You know, and it's just so clear to me that they've never moved anywhere. They've never lived outside of our country. Because only in America do we have this kind of annoying little discussion about who gets to live as a human being and who doesn't. You know, it's crazy. We are a better country than this.
Yeah.
For me, it's this. If you are a trans person, if you are a gay person, if you are bisexual, if you are asexual, if you're heterosexual, the most vanilla of all the options. Fantastic. Wonderful. I love it. Do it all. I don't care because it's none of my business.
Absolutely.
All of that matters. All of those people factor into the big tent party.
Absolutely.
All of you get equal advocacy. All of you are available to equal representation because here's what I also know. Doesn't matter what color of the rainbow you fall under or if you believe in that flag or not. You are all made to be worthy of dignity
Yep.
and value and worth. And you were given a voice, and your voice was never given to be quiet or silent, but your voice was never meant to hurt or harm.
That's right. And at the end of the day, you're an American like all the rest of us.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
All right, we're coming on to the end. So real quick, I'm going to have one more question here for you, and then we'll just kind of get into some closing stuff. But what moment made you decide that you weren't just going to talk about problems, that you were going to run for office and do something about it?
That is a really great question. And immediately I have the answer. No, I am a poet as well as I am like an artist and a politician.
I love that.
And I live with debilitating anxiety. In fact, like I cry in front of my campaign manager from time to time. I cry in front of audiences and I break down because I'm real. I'm never gonna pass your purity test.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna pass your perfect politician test. I'm never going to be your perfect veteran. I've made mistakes. I'm an alcoholic who lives in sobriety. That's a central part of my story. I talk about the failures I've lived through because they catapulted me forward. They propelled me forward. I talk about failing forward a lot, and that's how I live my life. Is even if you fail, you just stand up.
Yeah.
Wherever you failed at last, stand up, and I guarantee you're at least 1 or 2 steps ahead of where you were before.
That's
right? And there's a great book called Atomic Habits, and I'm forgetting the guy's name. I think it's James Cleary.
Okay.
Anyway, he argues that you just need to improve your life daily by 1%.
Right.
And by the end of a year, that's 365% more.
I have a similar saying.
Yeah, I
music.
love that.
Yeah.
So to answer your question though, like what was that thing that propelled me off the couch? And I wrote this. It's my anxiety is my superpower. When the anxiety of doing nothing is greater than the anxiety of acting, I act. When the fear of standing still is heavier than the fear of standing up, I stand. When the fear of silence outweighs the fear of speaking, I speak. And when the fear of apathy is louder than the fear of failure, I run for office. I am more afraid of being at home, apathetic, doing nothing, feeling like I don't care, than failing. I don't care about failing. I care about doing nothing.
Yeah.
And there's a separate one, that also is just amazing to hear also. And I hate to take up more time with this,
keep going.
It is so important. This one is so good. And most people have never heard of this poem. But for those of you who are veterans who happen to listen to this today or later in the future, those of you who are survivors like me of self-harm, those of you who have survived sexual harm or sexual assault like me, I hit my rock bottom in 2019. I was losing my mental health. I was losing my husband. I thought I was losing my military family. I felt like I was losing any sense of control I had over my life. Yeah. And it was just falling all around me. And it took me a long time to climb out of that rock bottom place. I'm 4.5 years sober today. I'm very proud of myself. Thank you so much. I tell folks all the time, as a disabled veteran and a PTSD veteran, I get to say these 2 simple sentences that thousands of veterans don't get to say anymore. I'm here. I'm alive. And it's not lost on me that I get to say cool things like that.
Yeah.
3 times I survived that. I didn't think I was going to be doing what I'm doing right now. So if you don't believe in yourself, stare in the mirror a little bit longer until you do. Yeah. If I can do this, you can do this too. If I can rise above it, you can too. Because I'm nobody. I'm a nobody. I'm no one important. I'm nothing special. I'm nothing unique. I'm just like all of you guys. But this poem was one of those things that really pulled me out of that rock bottom. And this is how I live my life. I walk with my rock bottom as my best friend. It's my best teacher.
For sure.
It is a thing that has hurt me more than anything else, but it is a thing that I continue to be. Sorry. My rock bottom is the thing that continues to educate me throughout my life.
Yeah.
Told you I get emotional.
That's okay.
Because this is a real story. And it goes like this. The poem is titled Defeat, and it's by Khalil Gibran. Defeat, my solitude and aloofness. You are dearer to me than 1,000 triumphs and sweeter to my heart than all world glory. Defeat, my self-knowledge, and my defiance. Through you, I know I am yet young and swift of foot, and not to be trapped by withering laurels. And in you, I have found aloneness and the joy of being shunned and scorned. Defeat, my shining sword and shield, in your eyes I have read that to be enthroned is to be enslaved, to be understood is to be leveled down, and to be grasped is but to reach one's fullness, and like a ripe fruit to be consumed. Defeat, my bold companion. You shall hear my songs and my cries and my silences, and none but you shall speak to me of the beating of wings and urging of seas and of the mountains that burn in the night. And you alone shall climb my steep and rocky soul. Defeat, my deathless courage. You and I shall laugh together with the storm, and together we shall dig graves for all that die in us, and we shall stand together in the sun with a will, and together we shall be dangerous. That is how you take the moment that was there to break you and turn it into your best friend, your companion, your teacher, and I walk beside it. You want to know why Mark Alford and Donald Trump and all those others can't give me a smear campaign or a smear ad? Yeah. Because I talk about this stuff openly. I don't hide my vulnerability. Right. I put it on full display because if I want you to trust me, if I want you to be vulnerable with me and tell me the pain points in your life, I have to give you my trust freely and openly first. I have to be vulnerable with you freely and openly first. Yeah. And I learned that from an amazing therapist who's also a veteran, a Marine, and a firefighter. He said, vulnerability begets vulnerability. Trust begets trust. And I learned this as a poor person. Given no other opportunity, I can do anything.
Absolutely.
You give me that job, given no other opportunity, I got to make that buck. I'm going to do that job better than you, better than anyone. I'm going to get promoted the fastest. And that's how you live your life. If you grew up poor, you know this. Yeah. Given no other opportunity, I can do anything.
Period. What an amazing, beautiful poem and testimony. I love that. That was so beautiful. We're going to end this off with my mom's last question because I think that this is a beautiful segue into you. Let them know where they can find you and where to vote and all that stuff. But it says, what do you say to people who have lost their political faith and don't believe anyone anymore? How do you win their vote? Humans for humans.
I have to do this over and over and over and over and over.
That vulnerability right there. Absolutely.
It's not a one and done kind of gig. Yeah. It can't be, right? Let's use forgiveness as an example. Say somebody offends you and does something real terrible to you. Mm-hmm. We're all people who are meant to forgive one another, and we try our best, but admit to yourself, the first time you tried to forgive somebody who did something really terrible to you, did you actually forgive them?
For sure, right? No.
I didn't.
No.
It took maybe years of saying, I forgive you.
For sure.
I forgive you. I forgive you. And then eventually it grew and you learned how to forgive again. Mm-hmm. The same is true with politics and trust. Trust isn't linear. Trust doesn't work like this. It's not linear. Trust is on a wheel. Okay, so, and I'll give an example. We don't know each other well, but I bet you would trust me to drive you to a location, right?
Sure.
You don't know me. You've never driven in a car with me.
Seem like an okay guy. Think you'll get me there alive.
So you trust me with that. Would you trust me if I handed you just some random pill and said, take it?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so there are degrees of trust. There are degrees of trust. So what I'm getting at with that one simple example is, I love my brother a lot, but I don't trust him to take my car and drive it anywhere.
That's right.
I know how he drives. I love my mom. She's watching.
For sure.
But I don't trust her to give me, cooking advice. She is not a cook. I love you, Mom. Don't get me mad at her.
Sorry, Mom.
She makes the best enchiladas in the world. But aside from that, I don't trust that. Yeah, I got to look it up. I'm helping a guy who's homeless right now. He's living with me. He's been homeless for a few years, and he's a great guy. He's a carpenter and a masonryman, and he just needs a shot. Yeah. He's at my house right now by himself. I trust him to be in my home. Yeah. I'm not going to tell him the code to my safe where my gun is at,
Right. Exactly.
So varying degrees of trust. Trust is on a wheel. Yeah. So you might trust me in terms of your political vote, but you might not trust me to drive your car, and that's okay. So just Learn where to place your trust and how much trust you can put into a person. And remember, just because I trust you with what you're saying today doesn't mean I trust you with giving me a pill tomorrow or fighting for me tomorrow. That's another day of trust you've got to earn, right? And so again, it's just repetition of me coming out here and to like earn your trust, and you feel comfortable enough with me to give me your trust, you know, because it's a yes or no question. Either you trust me or you don't.
For sure.
And that's the thing. Like a lot of people think you can just do it over time and you'll get it in increments. It's not incremental. It's either you have it or you don't. Now, for those folks who have been disenfranchised by the political process, please look at my race. Check out what I'm saying. If you go to fec.gov and put in Herrera for Congress or Jordan J. Herrera, you can Google me on FEC, or that's a Federal Election Commission. You can search me on FEC, and you'll know I'm not BSing you. You can find out every single dollar I've collected and from who. Everyone's name is on there.
That's awesome.
Everyone's name is on there. So I make sure that I'm 100% transparent. So if I've taken political action committee dollars, you would see it there too.
For sure.
You can see the same from my political opponents. They have taken PAC dollars. Even the Democrats that are running against me. One guy who's running against me, he's already taken PAC dollars, and all of his money is coming from California and New York. It's not coming from Missouri, but my money comes from Missouri. I mean, a little bit from California because I have a cousin there.
There you go.
That's it. Yeah. No, so that's how I think you can trust me, and why I'm different, and why you can believe in the political discourse again, is because there are real people like me who are not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I'm trying to show you who I am, the ugly parts of me, the less than beautiful parts. Telling you that I'm an alcoholic who lives in recovery. You probably haven't heard that before. But I believe in being
very
honest.
Real, very transparent, and I like my mom's last comment too. Stay real, stay human, keep caring deeply, keep speaking for all of us. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
This is just water.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
I learned my lesson. I drank the Kool-Aid in the Air Force once, never again. Never again. I was stuck.
It. Well, I just want to say again, shout out to your campaign manager, William Thomas, right? Putting you up on URBNKC and getting him, an interview up on URBNKC. I was thrilled when I got that email. I was super excited to welcome you here. Thank you for sharing all of your views with us. Thank you so much for everything that you've said, keeping it transparent, keeping it real. We really appreciate that here at URBNKC, and I think that's one thing that the community in general needs more of is genuine people. So thank you for that. Tell people again when the election is.
Oh yeah.
And what they need to look for and how to vote.
So the primary election is on August 4th, 2026. Check your registration today. The federal government has the voter roll. Check your registration today, update it today, then you don't have to think about it for the rest of the year.
There you go.
It's already done. So check your registration, update your registration August 4th. Be prepared to take yourself and your entire block to the ballot box. Remember, the couch is what won last time. 208,000 votes went to the couch. People who didn't even show up. We need to get those people off of their couch. I know I'm going to collect probably around 100,000 votes right off the bat, but we need to get 100,000 more votes to win, and it's going to be tight. But here's the other positive part. All across the country, we're seeing huge swings, right? So Republicans are losing in deep red places anywhere on a low estimate from 12 to 14 points. And in states where there was gerrymandering like Texas and in Missouri, it's a movement of 17 to 22 points.
Okay.
Our district is it's an R17, meaning there are 17 more Republican points in it, or up to 20 points. And if we are able to move it, even just on the low end or an average, we are within 3 to 6 points of flipping this seat. That is the margin of error. We can do this with just a little investment in getting enough people off of the damn couch. So remember August 4th. And then here's another thing. That's just the primary. November 3rd is the general. But here's why I need you to get invested and involved right now. So go to jordanjherrera.com, because when I win the primary on August 4th, I only have 90 days to defeat Mark Alford. I need your help now. Kamala Harris had 107 days, and she was unable to get it done because she didn't have enough time. In Missouri, we only give our candidates 90 days from the primary to the general to build a case. I need your help today. Go to my website, jordanjherrera.com. If you'd like a yard sign, a t-shirt, a hat, or a sticker, those will be available beginning this week. just go to the website and click on merch. It'll take you right to our store, and all of that will get sent direct to you. I would say, let's see, November. What was the other thing? I'm sorry.
No, you're totally good. She was
Herrera.
putting the August 4th on there, and then you said November 3rd, right?
Yep.
Boom. My mom is so great. She's putting everything in the comments like, guys, make sure you bring your kids. Take the neighbors.
Yes.
No, she said take the kids and show them how to vote.
Yeah.
Every time. That's exactly how it
Make
works.
a plan. Make it an event. Make it an important day. This is the day we correct our nation and we push back. You'll hear everyone say, this is the most important election of our life. This is. Yeah. This is. We have never been so close to constitutional upheaval.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to be an alarmist, but on a constitutional lawyer's perspective level, we have seen unprecedented levels of violations happening, like unbelievable violations. I mean, over 200 documented sexual assaults in ICE facilities last year alone. 9 people this year, and it's more than 9 people have died this year because of ICE alone already.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the year to stay at home.
Now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't stay at home. And exactly like he's saying, the couch votes, how many of those were there last time? That's crazy, y'all. Because at the end of the day, someone's going to win. So get out and vote for someone. Do your research. Get off your couch. Wake the neighbors. And go vote. Exactly. Hey, Jordan Herrera, it was such a pleasure to have you on URBNKC.
So much.
Thank you so much. Campaign manager Will, thank you so much for putting him on. I can't wait to shake your hand one of these days. I'm going to have to come out to your next
event. You guys know of anyone else in the KC area that needs to hear our message, please. I'm a grassroots candidate. I do not take in massive amounts of money. Farm me out. I am a product. Help sell me.
Period. We love it. All right, y'all. This has been episode 35 of URBNKC. This episode will be available on all platforms tomorrow. Thank y'all so much for tapping in and engaging in the comments, asking those hard questions, and keeping him moving on having to answer those questions from the community. I really appreciate y'all, and we will see you next Sunday.
Baby, take me all the way back to another world in outer space. Baby, take me down, 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 down. Keep it moving all around and round and round and round. Yeah, my baby.